right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel. I am here with Dennis Heaton, the prior president of the Writers Guild of Canada, and now he serves as the Pacific Region Councillor. Thank you for joining us, Dennis.
Hey, Katie, how you doing? It's great to be here.
Oh, thanks. So, obviously, we are a web festival.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about web series involvement at the WGC and why the WGC is excited about web series and web content.
That's a great question. I mean, I can talk a lot about personal experience with web series stuff, probably better than I can talk about the Guild. I mean, I am a counselor and I do know some stuff, but like, if people want to get into the minutia about like the IPA and digital contracting and stuff like that, eventually glaze over and I'll be like, you should contact Laurie Channer or Aaron Unruh at the Guild and they can answer all of those questions for you. So just to get that out of the way right now, you can always contact Aaron Unruh and Laurie Channer at the Guild and they can answer any questions about the digital contracts for the IPA. But I mean, clearly, the Guild, the Guild was formed to, support writers and, to, create a, method in which writers could have a retirement plan and have a dental plan and a medical plan and, sort of, be able to go to dinner with their mom and say, I have a job and I work for a living and I have a pension, kind of thing. And so, one of the things that the Guild is always looking for is how do we protect as many writers as possible? When it comes to digital series, digital was it was a big conversation over the last few years because, there's kind of now two kinds of digital. You can sort of look at it as, there's digital YouTube and sort of, the whole thing that's kind of going on with Bill C-10 and all the, the kind of doomsaying that was around like, our internet freedom suddenly being taken by the liberals because they were, going to put Bill C-10 in and then all of a sudden YouTube was going to be like policed by the CRTC. Not going to happen. But, there's that kind of social media. And then there's Netflix digital media, for example. And that's where we do want, that kind of intervention with like the CRTC going, well, wait, if you're generating content and you're, selling it, to Canadians, if you're basically acting like Bell or Global, then yeah, you should be sort of paying into the social contract of, creating CanCon, all that kind of stuff. So that's a different topic of conversation. And again, also, a bit of a spider web. But what we realized is we wanted there to be an option for our writers, our members, to be able to work in digital. And there wasn't really in the original IPA, a method of having that. So that's why digital became its own sort of category in the independent production agreement. And, it's a very, it's intentionally designed to be a very accessible kind of contracting. Right? There isn't a flat rate in the same way there's a flat rate for animation or a flat rate for a half hour or a flat rate for a 1 hour. You can sort of, it's a negotiable rate. You can negotiate by minutes. It's, there's sort of lengths and stuff like that. I feel like I've been blathering on far too long.
Great. No, so based on your web series budget and the length of the episodes,
yeah,
the Writers Guild of Canada is happy to work with you to find something that will compromise and fit everyone's needs.
Exactly. And I mean, one other thing we acknowledged when we, we're starting to talk about this is a lot of times the web content is being produced by the members themselves. So it's like writers who are turning themselves into writer producers and taking on that mantle of, I'm just going to make this content. Yeah. And, sort of, working with them so that they can, produce these programs, kind of thing.
Shifting gears a little bit, what was it like? You were the showrunner of the Order, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How was working with Netflix and show running that series? That's so cool.
Thank you. I mean, Netflix is such a big, company. Like, I can talk about the executive producers at Netflix that I worked with, Chris Regina and Pete Corona and Josh Hoberman, who were a fantastic team. And they're part of the bigger drama umbrella. But the Order was my second show with Chris. I've just done another show with Chris and the team, and we work really well together. I mean, Netflix, Chris as an executive, he doesn't sweat the small stuff in the notes, which I really appreciate. Like he talks about the sort of big picture of the story, and if there's a specific that he'd like to see, kind of thing, then I can sort of speak to that stuff. But he doesn't get into the minutia of a script, and creatively that's it's kind of refreshing to work with an executive who just sort of focuses on that stuff. Excuse me, a puppy just walked into my room.
Oh, can I see?
Yes, come here.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so
oh my God.
we can now spend the next.
Uh-oh. Ronnie, do you still have me? What happened?
What happened was Tilly hit the Tilly.
Okay, I guess we're back.
Okay, we're back, everybody. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Oh, Tilly.
So that's Tilly.
Okay, so let's talk about you getting into writing in the first place, because you've been a writer producer for since the 90s, if your IMDb is giving me the right information.
Yes.
So, okay,
yes, it is.
You're like somebody who's a Canadian who's made a career as a writer, worked on many different TV series. You've won awards.
Thank you.
So it's amazing. It's really exciting. So tell us a little bit about how did you get into it? And what were your first steps? Because a lot of our members are emerging.
Right.
And, so we have a lot of members starting out. So tell us a little bit about the beginning and how that worked for you.
Sure. I mean, short story long. The film had always been the thing for me, right? Even back in high school, I knew I wanted to go to film school. I knew I wanted to make movies. In high school, though, I thought what I wanted to do was do special effects. That was and I still am a huge fan of horror movies, of science fiction, of genre. And I loved all the, monster design and special effects and stuff like that. So I originally was thinking of a career in that. And then I went to Cap College. I did a technical program there called Media Resources, which was 2 years of learning, television production, film production, radio, photography, every kind of sort of media tech that I could learn. I was learning in this program, and it was sort of teaching me through the window of educational media. So I was learning, basically how to make educational films, kind of things, like Our Friend Zinc and those kind of movies. And then from there, I went to SFU, and it was during all of this time that writing became a hobby, and I really started to develop an interest in writing and screenwriting specifically, but just as just in a hobby form, because I really liked writing my own short films. I really liked writing copy for commercials. I spent one of my first sort of summer jobs sort of connected to working in media was working at a radio station in Salmon Arm for the summer between school semesters. And and I got to write copy for the news and these holiday helper things that were like, don't stay out in the sun too long. I know you might get sunshine.
Sounds like you wrote some pretty riveting stuff.
Oh, it was comparisons to like Hemingway would be obvious. So anyways, I did that, and then over the years while I was in film school, I started to sort of really like writing. And then I quit SFU after second year because I really, I didn't get along with anybody. And and I was kind of like, I was also working at an animation time, and I was like, well, I'm paying SFU to learn film, but I'm also getting paid to work at this animation studio where I'm learning just as much about film. So I quit school and I started working full time at the animation studio. And I went, over a number of years, I went from being a production artist for cartoons to becoming a producer for cartoons, and still hobby writing. And and it's around this time that I'm actually writing the first draft of Fido. And it was around in my day, it was around 1994 when Danny Antonucci, who did Lupo the Butcher, he got a TV series with MTV called The Brothers Grunt, and he hired me to produce the series for him. And so I was producing the TV series, and we couldn't find enough writers in Vancouver to work on the show. We couldn't find enough writers who were interested. So I started writing scripts for the show. And then that's when I realized, not only did I, really love writing, I could conceivably do it for a career, and I preferred it to producing. So that's around 94 is when I start shifting my career from, producing animation to, basically, and I started writing for animation.
You kind of are someone who, it sounds like you were writing before, but you sort of, I don't want to say fell into it because you put yourself around it, but in a way, it sounds like they lit the fire under your ass and you ran with it.
Yeah, it was more like a long crawl up the mountainside kind of thing of sort of going, oh wait, this thing that I've sort of conceptualized as a diverting pastime, could actually pay the bills. And so, I started to focus my career away from producing and, using all of my all of my animation producer contacts, sort of phoning them up and going, hey, I'm also writing these days and I'd love to pitch for your shows kind of thing. And I think one of the benefits of having been a production artist, and sort of worked up in the production ranks of animation, I wrote animation scripts that were easily producible because I had a producer's understanding of what was needed to sort of work within the budget of an animated show. So and often that was commented on by the people I was working with. They were like, your scripts come in and they're so easy to work with. The animators, the storyboard artists know, they can read the script and they can go, oh, okay, I see what's going on, and do the storyboards off of that. So that allowed, that sort of reputation built. And I wrote primarily for animation for about 6 or 7 years. And, I like definitely, at least 75 cartoons that I wrote in that time.
Wow.
So yeah, like a ton of animation.
That is insane. Dennis, we have a question from.
Oh, sure.
How do you feel about blind casting? As a writer, sometimes I don't feel the need to specify race or cultural identity, but don't want casting directors to cast only white if it's not specified.
That's a great question. And it's a conversation we have a lot in the writers' rooms of the shows we work on. And, what I found is with main characters, with, like the characters that are going to be the top 5 on my roster on the call sheet, we won't blind cast them. We'll identify them, and identify their histories and their ethnicities and all of those aspects of them to be very specific, because, we're building that character from the ground up. And so we want to make sure, that what we want to see presented on screen is on the page. With the characters, the characters that are more day player, they're going to have 1 or 2 scenes in the episode. When the casting director does the breakdown, I go through all the breakdowns and make sure that they have indicated that it's all ethnicities, kind of thing. So it ends up being like, both ways. And then, at the same time, I'm working on I'm doing a show right now for Netflix, and, one of the characters, Juan, is Latinx. And so we were very specific that we wanted one to be Latinx, because it sort of, played into, the abilities that he had in this show based on a specific request from Netflix. And so we were like, well, if you want that aspect of the character, then this character has to be Latinx. We can't cast otherwise. So, the conversation was, if we can't get a Latinx actor to Netflix's satisfaction, we'd have to go back in and completely rewrite that character and give that character a new ability, kind of thing. So it's, so that's kind of how we've been handling it these days.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So back to the earlier conversation.
Sure.
A theme, if you will, seems to be that your knowledge as a producer starting out, so sort of being forced to learn the practical nuts and bolts side of things, really served you well when you were writing, because you were able to write things that were budget friendly and realistic.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, if you started today, you would do a web series?
I probably would. I mean, I did do a web series. I did one called My Pal Satan with the Canadian Film Center. And that was something that I did. I think we did it in 2009.
So that would have been one of the first web series.
I don't know if I'd say it's one of the first web series. It was definitely an earlier iteration. We did it like, it was basically the CFC did it as a way of doing a showrunner training program. And so that was kind of like, my first show running, of live action. I'd done an animated series, not even a series. It was like a bunch of animated 1-minute shorts for DHX. I can't remember if they were still Decode at the time or if they were DHX at this point, but they had optioned these books called Naughty Naughty Pets. And they wanted these 1-minute shorts. And so I did the scripts, I had a small room and we did all the scripts for that. These little 1 minute, 1.5 minute interstitials. I think they ran on CBC and they ran on I think they ran in the subways in the Toronto subway system. But the web series was, that was just a lot of fun. It was basically, it was a human, young female human living in Toronto, and Satan answers the ad to be her roommate. And so she ends up with Satan as her roommate.
I feel like
the literal roommate from hell. So
amazing. That's pretty funny. Having worked on a web series, an early web series, I'm going to say, and also in television, what would be the major differences? Like, or do you think that at the heart, the work is kind of the same? It's just like a smaller team, smaller format, or were there any big differences between the two formats that you could comment on?
No, I mean, that for me is kind of like when people ask about the difference between writing for animation or live action. I mean, there's really, I mean, the difference is length
Yeah.
kind of thing. You're still generating a character. You're creating a world. You're running them through their paces. All of the sort of mechanics of writing are the exact same. It's just, what is the output medium going to be? Is it going to be, you know, and now even the output medium is all the same. So,
Yeah.
the difference there is gone. It's really, it's like, how much, am I going to find the audience that wants to invest X amount of time in this story?
Do you think that it's more challenging now in a way to find audiences because there's so many different platforms, or has that not been your experience?
I think, actually, I mean, the thing that I get excited by is the fact that, my stuff goes to a larger audience, and it goes to a larger audience on a global level simultaneously. When the order premiered on Netflix, it premiered worldwide. So we premiere in Canada, and then 6 months later in the US, and then 6 months after that in Europe, and then 6 months after that in Russia, kind of thing. Like, we were, boom, like, out there. And Netflix is, they can be a little cagey with their viewing numbers, which I always find is funny, because you have these cryptic conversations with people, and you're like, so how'd the show do? They're like, it did well. I'm like, oh yeah, how many people watched it? A lot. Well, how many is a lot? A lot more than you think. Well, how many is that? Think of a number and then double it. It's like, why don't you just give me a number? You're like, we're not going to. It's like, okay. But we do, there's like third-party metrics and stuff like that, and and then somebody from from Netflix will phone you up and go, yeah, that number on the third-party metrics a little low. That number is, and so they sort of nudge you around. But the thing I do know is, just by being on Netflix, I like, when I was doing Motive, we'd get 900 to like 1.2 million sort of viewers per episode, kind of thing. And in Canada, that's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a large audience share if you've got, like, between that, those numbers sort of watching on broadcast night. Mm-hmm. And I know with the order, we were reaching like 10 times that, roughly. So, like, just by default, I'm like, more people are seeing my stuff. So that, that definitely makes me happy.
So interesting. So if you're on like a major platform that, like Netflix, that really has that reach, it's super helpful. But maybe if you're like just on the web on a smaller platform, it's easier to get buried. But it just depends, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like indie filmmaking, indie records now, kind of thing, mm-hmm. where it's like, you may get a smaller, you may have a smaller audience, but they're very passionate, and fan bases in general are much more passionate and a lot more interactive just by default. Like, when the order was canceled, I got more texts per day in a sustained, like, tweets. There was a more sustained response to the show being canceled than the show being on, which I've always found interesting. Is that's when that's when a lot of the fan base sort of came out of the woodwork, and then a lot of them blamed me for it. Yeah, so I was like, thanks guys. Yes, it was my idea to be unemployed.
WGC.
Yeah, it's like, what I'd really like to do? Not get paid. So.
That's great. What advice would you give to an aspiring writer who wants to do what you do?
I mean, some of these are kind of tropey, and I apologize for that, but I think they're tropey because, they're kind of universal. You got to write every day. Like, that's the first thing. If you want to be a writer, you've got to be carving out daily time to work on your craft. If you want to be a writer, but you're only like finding an hour every other Saturday, you're just never going to develop. It really is a nose to the grindstone, get the words on the page, right? You got to find a community. You got to get your, and you just got to start getting your stuff out there. You got to start networking. You got to start, telling people, what you want to be doing. To our earlier conversation, if you want to work in film or television as a writer, get another job in film or television. There's honestly no bad job in the industry if you want to be a writer, because you're going to learn something that's going to inform your writing, whether you're working as a production artist to producer who turns into a writer, or a development executive assistant. You learn every job, because unless you're doing reality, every show needs a script, and and everybody is going to need to work off of that document to make the show. So it's like just be working in the industry and sort of absorb that information and let it inform, whether it's informing your stories, like what your stories are about, or how you write your scripts. It's all going to be a benefit. Finding a community is huge. That's hugely important, is finding other emerging writers to share material with, learning how to give each other notes in a respectful manner, doing all of that kind of stuff, is another aspect of it. But watching the media that you want to create with a critical eye is also extremely important. And by that I mean, don't just watch it, analyze it. Like, have the remote and pause it and write the story beats out. Like really sort of deconstruct, like when you're watching a movie, what is it in those first 5 minutes that makes you like the protagonist, right? Do it with movies that are terrible too, because if there's one thing I've discovered, is you learn more from bad movies than from good ones, because a mistake is always more glaring than a success.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like and to use some Blake Snyder vernacular, if a movie doesn't have that save the cat beat for the protagonist in the first 5 minutes, or they've gone in the opposite direction, then it's easier to see it than when you sort of, you drive over, you're like, oh, I just like this person. Like it's harder to figure out why when the story is working, because you're just falling into the story and you just want to follow along with it. So
write every day, build a community, and critically watch work and really think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're and here's a fourth one. When you're writing your samples, write a story that you love. Because when you send your samples out to experienced writers, they can tell, like, it's just on the page if you're doing something because you're going, oh, medical shows seem popular right now, I'll write a medical show. But, that will never do as well as, I have grown up watching medical shows. They are my favorite kind of show ever made. I love how people, come in and their lives are on the stake and the doctors do everything to save them, kind of thing. Like, the difference is just, it's apparent. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about write what you know, it's write what you love. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
And Dennis, tell us again, if we want to make our web series WGC, who do we get in touch with?
You can talk to, they're probably going to kill me for this. Lori Channer and Aaron Unruh are, Lori's our head of industrial relations and Aaron is our second. And, they can help, they can help writers sort of go through the nuances of the IPA. The IPA is also, you can read it. I mean, it's like captivating reading. It's independent production agreement. But you can access that online at the WGC website as well.
Okay.
And take a look. But they're there to help writers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dennis.
Oh, you're welcome.
Coming back, you did an event for us a little while ago. So for joining us again.
Oh, happy to. It's always good to see you digitally.
Yeah, I know, right? Up East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
So yes, best of luck.
Thank you.
Everything, and I'm sure we'll bug you again at some point to come back.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Okay.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay. Is Dennis rushing off right now? Or
I was about to, but is there?
If there's gonna be a chance for anyone to talk to you on the floor, or if you want to leave, because we do have the second half of the presentation to give.
Is there anyone? No, I think we're good because nobody wrote any more questions. Oh, here's one more. Oh, is that what you want, Rodney?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay.
I feel like we're good.
All right. Well, then I will get the video set up.
Okay. Do you want to do that last question, or is it not a question?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do the last question. Is that okay, Dennis?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't see it till now. Poor Samantha. Okay, so we're going to do the last question before we finish.
Sure.
This panel. So it is, as a showrunner, do you read specs or originals only?
I'll read either. I prefer originals. And the reason why I prefer originals is because I get a better sense of what that writer is excited by in terms of their writing. Specs, I mean, a spec of an existing show, I can get definitely a sense of their technical ability as a writer, and I can sort of, get a sense of how well they can analyze material, and try to mimic something. But, ultimately what I'm more interested in is what gets them out of bed and over to the keyboard. So I'd much rather see an original spec that showed their world building, than see the world building of, Frank Darabont's Walking Dead kind of thing. And that said, it doesn't have to be genre. Like as much as I, go on about how much I love horror, which I do, I don't need to, I won't only read horror specs, right? Like if somebody's like, I've got a hospital 1 hour, it's like, send me your hospital 1 hour. Because a writer's room is, kind of like Iron Chef. And what you want is you want to construct it with, as many different powers as possible. So if you as the showrunner think you're good at structure, you may go, okay, so me and I need 2 writers that can sort of hammer out structure. Then I need like a couple of writers that are more nuanced on character. I need this writer for comedy. I need another, I need somebody else in the seat for, continuity, kind of thing. Cause that is an unsung ability is the person who can actually absorb all of the show mythology. And then when you're like 3 seasons in, you've got this, you're all talking about something and this voice at the back of the room goes, in episode 4 of season 2, you had the lead say this, so we can't do this story. And you're like, damn. Then you come up with something else. So,
yeah, it would be a lot to remember.
Yeah. Oh no, mythology. I mean, you can drown in your own show mythology if you're not careful. So, and when you're doing genre, that is extremely important.
Right, because the fans are in touch with what's going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if suddenly, like, it's kind of like it's the unspoken contract you're making with your audience. If you say vampires can only come out at night, and then in episode 4 suddenly all the vampires are walking around in the daytime, your audience goes, that's I've been sold a bill of goods kind of thing. So
Okay.
like flip Then they yell at you at Comic-Con. So
You're creating the world. You have to be consistent with it. I get it.
Yep.
All right. I'm here with Victoria Harding, the Executive Director at the Directors Guild of Canada. Congratulations, Victoria, on being Executive Director since March, I believe it is.
March 8th, International Women's Day, we made the announcement, but it was really more exciting. It wasn't so exciting because it was International Women's Day. It was exciting because I actually worked in film production for 25 years and I was a working member of the Directors Guild for all those years. And so proud board member, now proud executive director. So thank you.
Big congrats. So let's talk about web series. What makes you excited about web series right now?
I think just that there's so many of them and there's so many opportunities for them. I was looking at, a few that are hitting bigger. They're getting licensed to bigger streaming services internationally, and they seem to have a lot of scope and they seem to really catch the attention of the younger generation in shorter bites. And I think it's just a new way to tell stories that we should all be getting behind and watching them grow.
Right. And, when it comes to people who are making web series, there's a range from obviously, experienced producers and directors, but also some more emerging who are just starting out in the industry. For those who are more emerging, could you tell us a little bit about what the DGC does, just so we have kind of a general broad understanding of who you're representing and the kind of work that you're doing?
Sure. We've got, I think we just did a count. I think we're about to hit the 3,000 member mark, which is, we have more than doubled our membership since I started working in the office in 2013. That, I think we were at around 1,200. So that's more than doubling our membership in the last 8 years. So it's really something to watch the exponential growth that's happened in Ontario and to see how that's impacted our membership. We have 7 different categories of membership. We represent directors, assistant directors, accountants, art department, production design, editing, we get them all, production management, locations. I think I got them all. Was that 7? Did you count?
Accounting?
Accountants. We have accountants too. We have accountants, ADs, art, editing, PMs, locations, and directors. That's our 7. So yeah.
Wonderful.
It's a big gang. It's a big gang of people, and they're all very important creatively and operationally on a set. They're the people that you need to make your movie, and it's good to have access to the kind of expertise that our members can bring, especially if producers haven't got a lot of experience. You need good backup if you're going to venture into production. You need people that know what they're doing to help as things get bigger. Maybe not at the very beginning, but as things get bigger, definitely that transition is helpful to have people that have experience. They're helping you and helping you get through the inevitable wrinkles in production. So.
Absolutely. So, okay, so I'm making a web series and I've raised, maybe $100,000, let's say. That's probably a generous budget for a web series. And say I want to work with a director from the Directors Guild of Canada. What would be it could seem a little bit intimidating, the whole process of working with a guild, but what would be kind of step 1 for me in order to get this ball rolling?
Well, I think you did it. You came in and talked to me and we talked about things and we figured it out. So, but what we did in the last round, when we bargained our last agreement with the Producers Association, we actually bargained a program to deal with this so that web series producers could access our people with sort of a bit of a watered down signatory process. Like what we did is we developed a special program that gives web series producers access to our people, all of them, no restrictions, in exchange for, you don't become signatory, but you get what we're calling automatic dispensation. And so that means that you can work without having to digest the 100 pages of collective agreement. You can kind of go ahead on a smaller scale, do your thing, but you have access to guild members in all of our categories. They get what we call dispensation, which is permission to work without reference to the agreement. And in exchange, the deal is that for any guild members that you hire, you're going to pay their, whether it's tier E or tier F, which are quite low, their health and welfare and their pension fringes, and we will grant them dispensation. And so there's a list of information that needs to be provided to us in order for that to all happen, but it's all fairly straightforward. We have to identify the guild members. Each of the guild members has to do a dispensation request form, and we do a health and welfare participation agreement. And that's really, I'm trying to think what else there is for scary contract type documents. Other than that, it's just the budget certification. And that's how we decide if you're tier E and F. If you have a very generous web series budget, you might be tier E, but most of them really fall into tier F, which is quite a low fringe package. And therefore it's very friendly to the producers. And what we want is for producers to be comfortable to come and meet with either me or Cynthia Clayton, our senior business agent, Colleen Harding, our business agent. It's like we can go through everything, step through everything with you, just like we did with you, and try to make it as painless and easy as possible. But there's also, I should mention, you're not obliged to work with guild members. Like what happens is that if you want to access guild members, then we go through this program, and this is how you're able to access guild members without restriction. So if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And in terms of the fringes, can we just talk a little bit more about what that means, and just a rough estimate? I know on my show you guys were so helpful. It was in the hundreds of dollars. It was a very reasonable amount.
Yeah. We do the same. It's the tier F is what we're generally looking at with web series. It's like to get to tier E, you'd have to be above 157,000 per episode. And with the short episodes the way they are, that would be a fairly generously budgeted web series, I think. So most fall under tier F, and the tier F fringes that are payable are 2% to that member's health and welfare. So that's 2% of whatever their gross fee is, and that's negotiable. And 0.5% for pension. So it really it's really favorable. But the thing is that again, what we like about it is that it's not so much. It's important to the members to have those plans fed, even in small amounts, because there are things like short-term disability. There hinges, their coverage under the health plan hinges on how many contributors there have been. So even if a web series is only popping $25 into somebody's health and welfare account, that could mean the difference between short-term disability being accessible to them and not. So it's actually something that we think is really quite important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what has it been like for you so far working with web series creators? I think I might have been one of the first ones. I don't know.
You were one of the first ones. It was, we've had a great time with it. I mean, we've done Chateau Laurier recently. We've done Detention Adventure. We've done Slow Pitch. We've done, a few of the big ones, plus yours, which is fabulous. And so we're loving it. We think it's great, and it's wonderful. And we watch the success, and we're very pleased with that. We're very pleased to see that those are going places, and that they have places to go. And so presumably these producers that are doing these projects will start to do bigger, bigger. I won't say better, I'll just say bigger, bigger productions that are going to even larger markets. So, and that those would become union shows. So really we look at this whole program as an incubator. It's an incubator program for producers to get used to us, to get used to the things that are important to us. And what, there are some things we can negotiate on and some things we can't, just with everything. It's the same as everything, but we do the best we can.
Do you have any advice for emerging filmmakers in general?
Keep at it. Just keep at it. You've got to be determined and dogged, and you've got to go after what you want. It's like, don't get sidetracked. That's really important. People get sidetracked. It's like sometimes you get sidetracked chasing the money, and if you can afford not to, then I would say don't. Stay creative. And a lot of people go to the floor and think that they'll work their way up, and I think it's sometimes There are success stories like that, but they're fewer and further between than the people that just come out of the gate doing what they want to do. So, and I think that's what people that are doing web series are very much doing, that and following that path to be producers, to be directors, to, you know, to be working at that above the line, higher level right away, even if it's in a smaller way. It's like, that's what prepares you for the bigger way. So that's my advice. But if you want to work operationally or creative, come join the guild and you can work on all kinds of great shows. We need people. We need more people. Even with 3,000, we still need more people. Yeah.
Right? It's a busy time right now.
Very. And the scope of the productions we're working on in Ontario has really elevated too. It's like we have 2-3 Star Trek projects, I believe. We have Handmaids. We have, you know, shows like The Queen's Gambit coming here, and Emmy nominations happening. And it's like, you know, we're thrilled with the way the business has progressed in Ontario.
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah.
And speaking of just the DGC in, you know, in more broad strokes, how is it going, or how is it going with the negotiations? Are they coming up soon?
They are. This is a bargaining year, and so we're entertaining some proposals from the producers about timing, and so we're just trying to figure out timing right now. And once that's figured out, then we'll go into negotiations for our 2022 to 2025 agreement. Yeah, we expire at the end of the year, so the clock is ticking. We need to get that figured out quickly.
Okay, so for our web series creators, where's the best place to find out more information online and to get the information for you and Cynthia to reach out, come on in and get the ball rolling and find out more?
Online, where everybody lives these days, that's the place, dgc.ca/Ontario. And there's I don't think we have a section. There's a section with dispensation information, and there's a section that has the forms and so forth. But if you contact anyone in our office at 416-925-8200, anyone in the production department can set you up. And we have an info sheet, one sheet that explains everything quite nicely. That's available online. I think that's under our information bulletin section. So describing how to get somewhere on a website is really crazy, but it's like, I think it's in agreements and templates, and then you drop down and it has dispensation information, and there's also some of the schedules and so forth. But we can send a package just as easily as you can look it up.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you again. You know, when I came in a few years ago now with David Carruthers, our producer, you were just amazing. It was so easy. I was so nervous and intimidated by the process, but it was straightforward. The paperwork was straightforward for a first-time producer, and it was very manageable. So you really guided us, and just thank you so much for making that possible.
Well, I'm really happy it worked out so well and that you were pleased with the results. I know that it was a pleasure working with you, and DC is always he's been a great member for a lot of years, and I've known him for a long time. So we're always happy to help old friends too. So it's good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Victoria, and good luck with the negotiations.
Thank you, Katie. We'll see you soon, I hope.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Okay.
Bye.